For almost 15 years, audiences followed the Brown family on TLC's Sister Wives, believing they were watching a sincere attempt to normalize polygamy. But what if what we saw was not the truth, but a carefully engineered illusion? The collapse of 3 of Kody Brown's marriages wasn't just the failure of a plural family. It was the unraveling of a financial and emotional system built on hidden inequality, deliberate manipulation, and a deeply rooted pattern of patriarchal control. Beneath the public tears, the confessions, and the orchestrated storylines are disturbing realities that were never meant to be exposed. These revelations aren't wild rumors or exaggerated theories. They are conclusions drawn from years of footage, financial documents, legal records, and the courageous accounts of those who lived it. Once you know the truth, you cannot unsee it. And if you're ready to look past the surface and confront what was really happening behind the scenes, stay with us because this changes everything. The first truth that shatters the entire public image of the Brown family is the financial system that secretly governed their lives. Viewers were repeatedly told that the Browns were always on the edge of financial disaster. They discussed money problems endlessly, how hard it was to support so many children, how expensive housing and land were, how tight their budget had become. Kody and Robyn were especially convincing in portraying themselves as overwhelmed by financial burdens. But as the family splintered and documents began surfacing, a drastically different picture emerged, one where the family's shared resources were funneled into the hands of a single couple while everyone else struggled. For years, the idea of a family fund was used as a centerpiece of their plural system, something all the wives contributed to so the entire family could thrive together. Yet in reality, the flow of money was not equal, and it certainly wasn't shared. It was being redirected to support the comfort and lifestyle of Kody and Robyn, while the rest of the family was left with the scraps. The Kody Pass property is the most glaring symbol of this unequal system. The land was sold to the world as the Browns' ultimate dream, a shared future, a compound where they would all build their forever homes. It was supposed to be the anchor that held the family together. But when Christine left, and later Janelle and then Mary, their financial stake in the property became a battleground. Kody and Robyn's excuse was always identical. They insisted they were far too broke to buy out the other wives. They claimed they didn't have the hundreds of thousands of dollars required to compensate them for their shares. They said they were trapped, unable to meet their obligations, unable to give the women back what they had put in. Yet as those excuses were aired publicly, their bank records, public filings, and spending habits told a story not of scarcity but of indulgence. Their actions showed that the money existed, it simply wasn't for anyone but them. The most undeniable contradiction came with their new home, a property requiring a massive $1.6 million mortgage, while insisting they were too financially strapped to buy out the wives who helped build the family's wealth. They took on a luxury mortgage with monthly payments over $11,000. The down payment alone was approximately $420,000. If the family was truly broke, where did that money come from? The answer is painfully clear. The collective income generated by the wives' businesses, show salaries, and years of shared resources was being used disproportionately for Kody and Robyn's benefit. This wasn't mismanagement. It was a funneling of communal wealth into a private kingdom. The contrast becomes even more heartbreaking when viewed alongside the medical crisis involving Christine's daughter, Isabel. Her scoliosis was severe and required major surgery costing more than $250,000. The show documented Christine's struggle to pay for the procedure, and multiple family members confirmed a devastating truth: Kody did not contribute financially. He didn't travel with her. He didn't support her. At the same time, he was shopping for $1 million home with Robyn and investing family resources into luxury goods, expensive cars, and personal hobbies. When the money was needed for a child, it was suddenly unavailable. But when the money was needed for comfort and status, it flowed freely. And the spending didn't end at real estate. Kody purchased a Mercedes-Benz AMG, a high-performance vehicle valued around $100,000. Robyn bought a new Nissan Armada estimated at $60,000, two luxury vehicles, to people claiming they were struggling to survive financially. Meanwhile, Janelle, who had contributed significantly to the family fund, was living in an RV on the Kody Pass property because she couldn't afford stable housing, as she made personal sacrifices to help the family's long-term goals. The so-called family pot was being drained for things like Robyn's expensive doll collection, reportedly worth around $70,000. These were not toys. These were collectible items purchased while other wives and children were operating on shoestring budgets. The pattern continued: Kody's vintage Rolex, Robyn's large diamond ring, Their matching designer jewelry, including pieces from David Yurman worth thousands. Expensive art pieces for their new home. Motorbikes for their children. Each purchase reinforced the same truth. The family wasn't broke. The family was exploited. Money came from everyone, but it only benefited to people. And that imbalance helped destroy everything. From here, the second truth becomes clear: the move from Las Vegas to Flagstaff, one of the most chaotic and damaging decisions the Browns ever made, may not have been for the reasons they claimed. Publicly, they cited politics, lifestyle changes, and vague concerns about safety. But Christine revealed in her memoir that she believed the move had one real purpose: to place Robyn's oldest son, Dayton, near Northern Arizona University. This revelation makes sense of everything that never added up. The Browns had reached unprecedented stability in Las Vegas. Their four homes were side by side. Their children were thriving, and their family life was more functional than ever. Uprooting dozens of people for unclear reasons always seemed strange. But moving to benefit one child, specifically Robyn's, would have been unacceptable to the other wives. And so, if Christine's claim is accurate, the truth had to be hidden behind layers of justifications and fear-based narratives. The move destroyed the family financially and emotionally. The Vegas homes didn't sell quickly. They hemorrhaged money while struggling to find housing in Flagstaff. Zoning issues, rental problems, disconnection between households, and rising tensions turned the dream of Kody Pass into a fiasco. Teenagers were pulled from their schools and friends. Relationships deteriorated. The wives became increasingly isolated. And all of this, according to Christine, happened so Robyn's son could attend college nearby. It was a decision that prioritized one household at the expense of everyone else. The third truth emerges from the ashes of the family's collapse as the wives gained independence. Kody and Robyn allegedly escalated their control tactics. When the remaining wives sought their rightful share of Kody Pass, Kody and Robyn attempted to force Mary into signing a non-disclosure agreement in exchange for the money she was owed. This was not normal. It was an attempt to silence her and protect their image, an image already crumbling. Mary was devastated. After more than 30 years in the family, she was being treated not as a partner, but as a liability to be muzzled. At the same time, Kody made disturbing confessions on camera. He admitted he had thought about selling the land without compensating the wives. He said he wanted to mess them over. He raged about how disobedient wives made him feel like a failed polygamist because he couldn't just demand that they obey and sit down and shut up. These confessions stripped away the last remaining pieces of the persona he'd projected for years. They revealed a man who wasn't mourning the loss of his marriages, he was mourning the loss of power. A patriarch who wanted control, not partnership. The fourth truth is a cruel irony. After years of accusations that he favored Robyn, after years of alienating the other wives, ignoring their needs, and centering his life around one household, Kody finally got what he seemed to want. A monogamous life with Robyn, but instead of peace, their new life is filled with disappointment. Kody has admitted he is so broken by the collapse of the family that he has even considered walking away from Robyn. He is not fulfilled. He is not healed. He is angry, depressed, and lost without the identity he built around being the head of a massive family. Robyn is equally unhappy. She has cried over losing the large plural family she imagined. She has said openly that what she has now is only a cheap version of the life she wanted. Without the other wives, there is no structure elevating her as the favored one. There is no plural dynamic to compare herself to. The hierarchy that once benefited her has vanished. And the man she fought so hard to hold onto is no longer the man he was in the early seasons. Their relationship is not a reward. It is the final stage of a dysfunctional system collapsing inward. And finally, the fifth truth, the one that transcends all the drama and exposes the devastating human cost, is the death of Garrison Brown. He died by suicide in March 2024 at just 25 years old. No single event or person is responsible for such a tragedy. Suicide is complex and multifaceted, but it is impossible to ignore the documented emotional landscape that shaped Garrison's final years. His estrangement. It feels like nothing more than a fading shadow now. A sun-soaked memory from a life that doesn't quite feel real anymore. Picture it, all 18 Brown children gathered in one room, a beautiful, chaotic constellation scattered across couches and spilling onto the floor. Blonde and brown hair everywhere, laughter bouncing off every wall, not the staged, polite kind of laughter, but the real kind, full, bright, and effortless. The kind that only happens when people truly belong to one another. Back then, they weren't just a family. They were one organism, breathing in the same rhythm, moving like different limbs of the same body. The Brown family wasn't just a title, it was their identity, their shield, their world. a bond far deeper than the structure or rules of plural marriage. It was the natural connection the children built among themselves, pure and uncomplicated. But even the strongest-looking bonds can be fragile. And when everything finally began to fall apart, the first cracks didn't show up between the adults. They showed up in the quiet shifts between the children. Everyone thought the tension lived in the marriages, the arguments, the cold stares, the careful smiles for the cameras. But the real impact settled into the kids, piece by piece, year after year. They grew up between fractures, smiling through moments that were already starting to break. And now, when we look back, what once felt magical has become almost tragic. A memory of what they were and a reminder of everything that slowly slipped away. The adults kept insisting they were holding the family together. But the truth was the opposite. The children were the ones stitching the fractures, patching wounds they didn't create, and carrying emotional weight far heavier than anyone realized. They were the glue, the quiet stability, the invisible foundation beneath a structure already beginning to crumble. As the years went on, the signs became harder to ignore. The closeness that once came so naturally started slipping. The effortless laughter faded into polite nods, then into silence. Visits became shorter. Conversations became strained. The unity that once felt unbreakable slowly dissolved into four separate worlds, each child adjusting in their own way to the shifting ground beneath them. Some tried to hold on, clinging to the memory of what the family used to be. Others pulled away, choosing distance as their only form of self-protection. A few tried to stay neutral, pretending everything was fine even when they knew it wasn't. And some simply shut down because when a family breaks, not everyone has the words to explain what it does to them. Through it all, the cameras kept rolling, capturing staged family dinners and forced togetherness. But behind every scene was the quiet truth. The bond that once made them unshakable had thinned to almost nothing. And the kids, who were never supposed to carry the burden of adult conflict, found themselves standing in the crossfire of choices they didn't make. What once looked like a united front was now a fragile illusion. And the children, who once embodied the magic of the Brown family, were left trying to understand how something so whole could fall apart so slowly and so completely. By the time the cracks became impossible to ignore, the adults were no longer in sync with one another. Decisions that once required discussion were now made unilaterally. The show of togetherness that had been carefully curated for cameras began to crumble under the weight of real conflict. The disagreements over property, money, and control that had simmered beneath the surface for years erupted with a ferocity that few could contain. The move to Flagstaff, presented as a strategic family decision, was in truth a catalyst for chaos. Homes were sold, money was shifted, and the family's sense of place and stability was uprooted. Teens were pulled from schools and friends. Young children struggled to adapt. A veneer of calm masked the turmoil beneath. But the children, already navigating the complexities of a polygamous household, were forced to confront the reality of a fractured family. As the adults pursued personal priorities, often cloaked in the guise of family interest, the emotional burden fell disproportionately on the kids. They were the silent witnesses to the manipulation, favoritism, and growing resentment. Each child processed it differently. Some became caretakers, some became silent observers. Some pushed back, and some retreated entirely into themselves. The cumulative impact was profound. Patterns of insecurity, mistrust, and emotional exhaustion took root long before cameras could document them. Behind the scripted smiles and staged confessions, the children bore witness to a quiet truth. Love alone could not repair the fractures of neglect, imbalance, and power struggles. The family structure that once promised support and shared responsibility was slowly revealed to be precarious, built on selective allegiance and unequal power. The children, for all their resilience, were now navigating a labyrinth of adult failures, a reality that would shape their understanding of trust, loyalty, and the meaning of family for years to come. The fractures were no longer subtle. They were visible in every hesitant interaction, every half-hearted attempt at compromise, and every fleeting moment of genuine connection that seemed to vanish just when it was needed most. The Brown family, once a symbol of plural harmony and shared purpose, had become a complex maze of competing interests, loyalties, and emotional casualties, with the children at the center of it all. The escalating tension reached a boiling point when financial disputes collided with emotional resentment. The battle over Kody Pass, the family's supposed utopia, became the ultimate flashpoint. What had been sold to the public as a dream compound was, in reality, a symbol of inequity and manipulation. The property, meant to unite, instead highlighted the stark differences between Kody and Robyn's priorities versus the other wives. Christine, Janelle, and Mary each faced the impossible task of claiming their rightful stake while navigating the emotional fallout of betrayal. The communal dream, carefully maintained for the cameras, had become a minefield of legal negotiations and personal anguish. Every dollar owed, every word exchanged in the tense negotiations, revealed the truth that had been lurking beneath the televised facade. The family's wealth had never been equally shared, and Kody and Robyn had systematically prioritized themselves. The personal toll was even more damning. Christine's daughter, Isabel, required major surgery for a serious medical condition and urgent, life-altering need. Yet Kody, with access to family resources, failed to provide the support that any father would be expected to give. While he and Robyn indulged in lavish purchases, luxury cars, designer jewelry, and extravagant home renovations, a young girl faced her fears and medical procedures alone. The imbalance between the care of family and the pursuit of personal luxury exposed the cold, transactional nature of the family's internal hierarchy. Meanwhile, the other wives endured not only financial exclusion but emotional marginalization. The years of sacrifice, labor, and commitment to the shared family vision were systematically devalued. Their voices were silenced, their contributions overlooked, and their autonomy undermined. Attempts to negotiate their fair share were met with calculated resistance, legal maneuvering, and, in some cases, threats disguised as formal agreements. The battle over property was no longer just about land or money, it was a fight for agency, dignity, and the right to tell their own stories. What emerged from these conflicts was a pattern of control and coercion. Kody's tactics, masked as leadership and paternal guidance, revealed a deeper need for dominance and authority. Robyn, as his favored partner, became both participant and protector in this system, ensuring that their shared interests remained safeguarded, while the other wives were systematically edged out. It was a hierarchy dressed in the language of family unity but rooted in favoritism, manipulation, and self-interest. The consequences of these decisions rippled far beyond immediate disputes. Relationships fractured irreparably. Children witnessed betrayal, favoritism, and emotional neglect, leaving scars that would last long into adulthood. What was supposed to be a plural family built on collaboration and shared responsibility had become a laboratory of dysfunction, a stark illustration of what happens when power and privilege are concentrated in the hands of the few. By the end of this chapter in the Brown family saga, it was evident that the collapse was not sudden or accidental. It was the culmination of years of strategic choices, emotional neglect, and deliberate prioritization of self-interest over communal responsibility. The fractures were no longer repairable, and the dream of a harmonious plural family had been replaced with a hierarchy, where loyalty was conditional, love was selective, and power was absolute.